Welcome. This is an A-Day Friday. So, I will not be here Wednesday. If you need any help, you have to email me. It's the state bowling tournament. I'll be in Cabot all day long. So we're leaving tomorrow, getting back Wednesday night late. But, you can email me if you have any questions for this week. Let's look at our cybersecurity lesson. Pull up the window here. I did hear that they're still working on getting our lab set up. Apparently our tech department checked on it and they said, oh, it's been discontinued. It's like, it's not discontinued because it's still right here in our curriculum. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. Still working on it. All right. So we are on lesson 3, social engineering and physical security lesson. So let's take a look at that. When potential attackers manipulate individuals to revealing confidential information that may be used for fraudulent purposes, it's called social engineering. That's what we see on these scammers, the videos like we had on there. They're trying to reveal people into giving them passwords and different things sometimes on some of those calls, getting access. I saw one yesterday where they actually got into people's phone and got into their codes and were purchasing stuff for themselves using their banking app. It's crazy. Attackers typically exploit weaknesses, use phishing with the PH or whaling. Here's the definition of whaling. Type of phishing attack that targets high profile employees, like the CEO or the chief financial officer, to steal sensitive information from a company. Because if I can get into their accounts, they've got access to everything, right? So that's a fish or whale. Spear phishing and ransomware will hold your system locked up and you got to pay them to unlock your whole system. Unsuspecting users might select a rogue link in a suspicious email. What's this email I just got? And they click on the link and they download an infected file from the internet. They used to be a lot more common. Now they've changed into different ways of scamming. You don't see that as much, but it still happens. But social engineering attempts are not limited to cyberspace. Attackers often do whatever they can to infiltrate organizations, and this can include breaching physical security, actually showing up somewhere. So man traps like this, there's revolving doors and stuff. While a simple door and lock might keep an intruder out, an authorized user may tailgate behind an authorized user. An unauthorized user may tailgate. So you've seen that, some of these revolving doors and stuff. Person jumps in, there's 2 people squeezing through a small space. This is where you'd have to have like your key code to let you in the building. So you tap in and that activates the door and someone might slip in there with them. So the risk could be lessened by installing a turnstile like you might see at a theme park, or add surveillance cameras where you can watch those doors and see if someone's trying to slip in. But if security is of the utmost importance, a man trap may be utilized. So a man trap definition, a small space with 2 sets of interlocking doors such that the first set of doors got to close before the second set opens. So you have to open it and go into it, and that door has to close before it'll open the second door. So someone else can't squeeze in. If someone else squeezes in, they can just not let the second doors open. So the second door won't open. I've actually been in one of these man traps. I went to Rome some years ago for our wedding anniversary. Took my wife to Rome. And when I got there, I'm like, well, I need to get some euros because all I had was dollars. And so I went to the bank, and to get into the bank, they had one of these man traps where it opened. I got in, it had to totally close. And there's actually a security guard that was operating it on the other side. They actually had armed security there. That, once I got in, I showed my driver's license or whatever, just to ID myself, and they opened up the other side of the man trap, and then I could get into the bank. My wife stayed outside. She didn't want to have to go through all that process, but Yeah, so it was one door wouldn't open until the other one closed. So one gateway leads to an enclosed space protected by another barrier. So airports and courthouses are places you might see a man trap. And apparently Roman banks. But physical security. Components of physical security. So gaining physical access is just the first step that a criminal might use to attack an organization. Employees within a company are often considered easy targets. This could be as simple as a conversation in a break room when an unauthorized person has gained access and overhears private company details, people talking shop, right? By simply not following company procedures, they might divulge confidential information. If they're saying things in the break room that really should be confidential, someone might overhear it. So let's take a look at some common components of physical security. All right, they want us to select each marked location to discover more about the components. All right, so here is this office building. So let's start on the bottom floor, I guess. So first, let's go to the door. Oh, it's up here. Access and entry points can be exploited fairly easily, and personnel who manage these points should be properly trained because people can, even here at the school, we have the security for teachers giving teacher entrances. We got to scan our little badges and then unlocks the door, but someone could slip in behind us while the door is open. So you gotta train people to not let people in unless they got a badge. Let's check here right by the door. Visitor controls help others recognize when a visitor is on the premises. One example would be a bright and recognizable visitor name badge provided when a visitor checks in at the main office. I've seen this like in Kansas City at the Children's Hospital and even at the Children's Hospital in Springdale. That when you go in, there's a desk right there and there's a person and you have to check in with them. If you're not an employee and have an employee badge, you have to check in with them and they'll generally take your driver's license. They'll scan it. So they have a record of you and what time you arrived. And then they'll give you a visitor badge that you stick on your shirt. So when you're walking down the hallway, people know that you've checked in and are supposed to be there. If you don't have one of those badges or an employee badge, then people will stop you and say, excuse me, who are you? What do you need? What are you doing? Because you have to have the credentials that show you checked in because they need to know who's in their building. So that is with this. Let's look over here on the first floor. Shadowing. That's when someone follows employees into a workplace and attempts to enter unauthorized areas of the facility. It's like I said, when someone slips in behind you while the door is open. Employees should be trained in what to do in this type of situation. So yeah, someone shadowing behind there. All right, let's look over here on the staircase where we have a security camera. Cameras placed properly will detect intruders and should be checked frequently to make sure they're working, right? A lot of times, especially bigger corporations, if they have security cameras, they all go to a room where there's a security guard watching all of the cameras. So you know if it's not working right away because that screen will go dark. Typical security camera placements include entry doors, windows, stairways, parking lots, and other common rooms. Cameras should be installed higher than 10 feet, right? So people can't just cover them easily. Put it higher than 10 feet, which is not easy, not easy to get to. And they should have some protection from inclement weather. If it's an outside one, you're going to have, usually it's underneath an overhang where it doesn't get hailed on, doesn't get directly rained on. Should get some protection. So that's like we have all around the high school here. We have cameras in the hallways and, our security can monitor those and make sure only people that should be here are in the building. Sadly, that's necessary these days because people trying to do bad things in schools. All right, let's look at the second floor. Let's go on the right side up here. Alarm systems. See, that's what these little blue things are in their picture. Alarm systems typically include open and closed circuits and motion detector. All right, a circuit-based alarm sounds when the circuit, which is usually a set of magnetic contact points, is open or closed. This could be by a door, a window, a fence, or a gate. If something opens, an alarm may go off. Motion detectors, triggers an alarm when there's movement in an area. Like if it's closed, then they can set that to look for any movement. If there's movement, it can set off the alarm. All those kind of things on alarm systems. Let's look over here. This looks like a paper shredder. Information disposal is necessary to ensure that company information is disposed of securely and that the information can't be easily put back together, like shredding documents. I know there's some businesses that cater to that because sometimes banks or other places that have a lot of information that don't need to go public, they may keep like 5 years of records. But that means every year they throw out the sixth year and they may have a whole lot of stuff they accumulate over a year. So you'll see these trucks, these shredding companies, where they bring this big box truck to your place. They got this great big shredder in there where they can take whole cases of documents and just throw them in by the hundreds. And these big shredders have shredded all four of them. So that's the way that a lot of these large companies can shred things if they have like a year's worth to dispose of at one time. Otherwise, you'll probably see a lot of these small shredders around that they can use on a daily basis. All right, let's look at the third floor up here. Sensitive areas like server rooms contain valuable property and information assets. It's important to ensure they're properly identified and protected. So they should always be protected by a lock and possibly biometric security, where you got to have a finger scan to get in or an eye scan or something. So, only people that should be in there are in there. So you can see that's their server room with a security door there. So there's lots of physical ways to protect all the sensitive information. All right, page 3. Natural threats, right? There's things that happen, equipment damage. So people aren't the only threat. You could have a fire. Water can do untold amounts of damage. If you got a server room and it's got sprinklers in it, if you have a fire and those sprinklers go off, it could damage all your servers. So you got to kind of think of how you construct these things. What are you going to do? Environmental controls protect assets like computers and expensive electronics from natural disasters like floods, fires, storms, and tornadoes. Notice that in that little illustration we saw, the servers were not on the first floor. So if that's an area that floods, they were up on the third floor. Even a simple interruption in heating and air conditioning can wreak havoc on hardware. If you have a server room, and I've been in businesses that do have that, usually you walk in there, it's like 60 degrees. They keep them very, very cold because computers have a problem when they overheat, right? So when you got these servers, there's a lot of heat being generated when you got multiple machines lined up like that. And so they keep the air conditioning way down in those rooms to help those machines not have a problem with overheating and damaging the equipment, losing information, all kinds of stuff like that. Devices such as working smoke detectors and video surveillance equipment can reduce possible risks associated with natural disasters. So, environmental monitoring. Environmental monitoring involves regular audits. They define audits as official inspections of an individual organization's account, typically by an independent body. Audits are usually not checking out your own equipment. It's hiring a company to come in and make sure everything looks right. Right. So that way you can detect if there's someone in the company doing something illegal, stealing from the company. So regular audits of the environment within the facility. An audit reviews important environmental factors. So you can have an environmental audit, including the temperature, humidity, smoke, dust, other debris. More advanced factors can also be part of the audit, like biological, microbiological, radiological, and chemical detectors. Depending on what kind of business it is, what's dangerous around there. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So HVAC management is responsible for controlling the temperature and humidity to provide indoor air quality, thermal comfort, satisfaction with the thermal environment. Ventilation involves oxygen replenishment. That's what the ventilation part is. You need to make sure oxygen is being brought into your building. Temperature control, removal of smoke, heat, odor, moisture, carbon dioxide from the environment. So the humidity should be kept between 40 and 60%. And oftentimes in a server room, they'll keep the humidity higher because the last thing you want is static, right? So if it's very humid, you don't get any static of any kind. So yeah, it'll keep it cold in a server room and they'll keep the humidity high. Make sure there's no static because that'll fry components of your computers too. Okay, physical security is a prerequisite to overall security. All right, security professionals got to use prevention, deterrence, detection mechanisms like underlying physical security controls to prevent physical security violations. Electromagnetic interference shielding. All right, you don't want magnets are bad things in their computers. You can wipe out all your data. That's essential for both power distribution cables and network communication cables. So you don't want magnets affecting the cables going through the walls. EMI shielding, electromagnetic interference shielding, protects cables against incoming and outgoing emissions of electromagnetic frequencies. So shielding requires the proper use of EMI shielding gaskets and conductive silicones. Hot and cold aisles. Hot and cold aisles are used in the layout to maintain optimal operating temperature for server racks and other computing apparatus in a large data center. The objective of the hot and cold aisles is to lower cooling costs, conserve energy by managing the airflow. So the airflow will flow up from the floor, there you see, and then it flows down towards the vent that pulls it back in and recirculates it. So they'll plan that to where there's an airflow. You don't want, if there's heat, you don't want it just sitting there. You want it to be circulating so that cooler air is replacing it regularly. So they'll plan all of this out to where the air comes in one side of the room and goes out the other side of the room. So there's a breeze all the time to keep any heat from building up and damaging the equipment. All right, we got 3 scenarios that we got to guess on here. An organization would like to improve its overall security by implementing environmental controls to prevent electronic interference. Which type of control should they utilize? EMI shielding, fire suppression, humidity controls, or an HVAC system. They want environmental controls to prevent electronic interference. What do you think? Let's see, when we looked up here, environmental, auditing, HVAC, physical security, talk about electromagnetic interference, electronic interference. Yeah, I'm thinking AMI shielding. It is EMI shielding. EMI interference is the effect unwanted electromagnetic energy has on electronic equipment. So in factories and power plants, they run the risk of that, and they got to be properly shielded. All right, let's look at scenario 2. Where would you expect to find hot and cold aisles? Oh, look, it's right there above us. So we know those are found in server rooms for your servers. It's to keep airflow. Right, so let's check our answer. That one really is right there above us. Typically, hot and cold aisles are in large server rooms or a place that houses a large amount of computer equipment. It's the best way to facilitate airflow and maintain your stable temperature. All right, scenario 3. What type of security controls might be used in a school? Oh, talked a little bit about that. Well, I think there's a combination. If you look at our school, some back from the other pages that we looked at, we would have cameras, right? Because we have cameras there. We would have the physical access where you have to have faculty ID badges. Let's see if they list anything else. But yeah, Dellen's got it there, cameras and ID badges. Most schools have security cameras, locks. Yeah, well, I didn't mention locks, but sure, that's why you have to have the ID badges. Security cameras, locks, and ID badges for students and staff. Perfect. All right, last page of the lesson, page 4. So developing a formal training method. Anytime you get all the security in place, people have to be trained on how to use it, how to maintain it. An essential component of a secure system's effective user training. Training users greatly reduces the vulnerabilities from social engineering and malware attacks. A security system should leave room for flexibility. Otherwise, users complain or adopt unsecure behaviors. Yeah, if you have to go through a lot of hoops for security every day to do something, it'll get to the point where they'll find ways around it because it's just a pain for the users to have to go through all these steps. So you have to find something that's somewhat simple to implement. Like having multiple passwords to remember might decrease user compliance. And if I got to put in a password for everything I do, that's going to get old. Training should be delivered to employees at all levels, and methods include facilitated workshops, one-on-one instruction, online training, books, and newsletters. Right. All right. Items to cover in training. Overview of the organization's security policies and the penalties if you're not complying with that, because You got to make sure people are helping your security. Reporting, incident identification, reporting procedures. If you see a problem, how do you report it? That should be part of training. What do you do to report a problem with our security? Site security procedures, restrictions, advice, and like safety drills. That's why we have those at the school all the time. Escorting of guests. If someone's in there that's not an employee, a lot of times business have where they have to be escorted by an employee just to make sure they're not doing something nefarious there. Use of secure areas and use of personal devices. Yeah, some businesses may not allow you to connect your cell phone to the Wi-Fi because that can create a vulnerability. Data handling, including document confidentiality, backup, and encryption. Right? How do you back up? How often are you supposed to back up your computer? That may be in their security policy. You should run a backup this often. A lot of times those are automatically done. If your computer stays at work, if it's a desktop, not a laptop you take home, it may automatically run a backup every night. Okay, password and account management, that should be part of training. Cyber threats, awareness of social engineering, malware threats, like phishing and website exploits. Letting people know if you see a strange email, don't click on it. Forward it to the IT department. Let them check it out. Don't just click on all these things. And then software, secure use of your software, including social networking sites, because lots of vulnerabilities there. So the bottom line, users should not assume a training program is the final accomplishment. Skills and training should be an ongoing progress. We get regular emails here from the tech department, just reminding us of different things or letting us know of new threats. Skills must be continually updated to cope with the changes in technology and threats. New threats come out regularly, and you have to train your people on what to look for. So page 5 just says, read the lesson, do the assignment. Oh, a grading rubric. Oh, so we must have a different, let's look at the wrong thing. See what the grading rubric. Okay, so we have an interesting assignment this week. It's a submission. So this is not one of your multiple choice ones. We'll go back here. It was probably on page 5, and I left it. Let me go to page 5. All right, here it is. Where you click review and complete the social engineering physical security project. So this is one of those cool things we're going to do. We're building something. All right, and don't do this on a poster. You can do this on a, whatever little PowerPoint, whatever little. You build it on a Word, Google Doc if you like. So what's it good? You're going to make a little poster or a company newsletter that has 5 tips for employees regarding best security practices. So you need to have a title for your poster and at least 5 tips for cybersecurity safety, and use at least 3 images that will help employees understand what you're saying. And just make it easy to read and visually appealing. So there you go. You're going to make your little security poster that you would put up in your place of business there for your employees. Has a title, list these 5 tips with some illustrations, at least 3 illustrations. And then you will just submit that here. Choose your Google Doc, Google file, or whatever. If it gives you trouble and won't let you choose the file, you can always email it to me, and I can, email to Mr. Brock. That way it shows that you've turned it in. You can do that. But that's it. You're going to make a little security poster. You can go back through the lesson and just pick 5 tips or whatever you'd like to make, and just have some fun with it. Enjoy yourself. Find some fun little pictures to illustrate that. So, all right, guys. Any questions? Everyone doing well this week? All right. We will see you guys. Like I said, I'm not here Wednesday because I'm out. So if you need any help, got any questions, I'll be here Friday, and you can always email. So see you guys next week.